you don't mind.
Okay, you want me to start from the top?
I have it written down here.
Okay.
Please
And
continue.
then around 1970, they decided to induct me into that culture committee. Joe Medicine Crow was designated as a scribe that time to the committee, and they discussed it, and they were talking about how that ceremony had, through non-practice, had been in non-use. But they talked about it, and they talked about what they had heard. They had heard that the dance was originally with the Omaha. The Omaha had shared it with the Santee, and the Santee shared it with the Hiradza. And the Hiradza kept it for 4 years and then brought it to the Crow. And the way the story goes, as they told it, and I checked with three individuals, Tim Grant and his older brother,
Mike.
Was it Mike? Well, anyway, Tim Grant and his older brother, I discussed it with them, and there was another guy, his last name was Sheridan. Discussed it with him, and I discussed it with a young man, last name of Hollister, and this was at the Smithsonian that I discussed it with him. And that Hollister was viewed to be the scholar and the knowledge of that dance. And so their stories were pretty much the same. They say that a young boy was returning to camp from whatever he was doing. They didn't say, but he fell and he cracked his head, and he was laying there to die, waiting to die. Then he heard drumming, he heard singing, and he crawled to the edge of a knoll and looked down and saw animals singing and dancing. And there were animals of all sorts. And then the grouse were leading the dance. And then they changed form into human beings, and it was this ceremony that he saw. And then he got healed from that experience. He returned back to his camp and shared it with his people, and this dance was intended for victory in war, which is why today the Omahas will refer to it as war dance. Victory in war. And so it came here, and the name, they called the ceremony itself Helushka, and from what I understand from those people and the Sioux that I spoke with, the Helushka means warrior's dance. And the ceremony itself has changed names from the Omaha to the Santee. They called it the same thing, but when it got to the Hiradza, they called it tail feather dance, the tail feather ceremony. When it got here, and according to the records back in those days, the subjugation that Native Americans are under, even now today, by the U.S. government, they watched everything that the Native Americans did. And at that time, in 1883, they say that the Hiradzas came on the train, and they brought the dance to us, to the present site of Joliet, Montana. And the Crows were camped at the second Mountain Crow Pin Belly Agency near what the white people call Sorki, we say Upsadoga. They were camped there, and from what I understand, that the Crows knew they were there, but they stayed away for about 2 nights or so. Then they came, and then the Hiradzas said, we have kept this ceremony for 4 years, and it's really a good thing, and we want to share it with you. And then the passing of the ritual came to the Crow. According to the records that we have seen, one report says the Crows paid for this ritual with 600 head. Another reports that they paid 400 head for the ritual. They paid for it. And that's the reason for that is that the Crow belief is that whatever you do for me that is good, I will, in our human way, understanding that if I give you something that is of value to you, it'll bring happiness to you. It'll bring gratification to you. And we try to offer those feelings by giving gifts. So even a prayer will give the person who prays for us gifts, money, whatever we can to bring that gratification and that sense of appreciation to the one who prays, so that the sincerity is then accomplished. That's the Crow belief. And so that's why the Crows paid, in one account, 600 head, another account, 400 head for that ceremony. But either way you cut it, that's a lot of horses to pay.
Yeah.
And so that occurred, and then the Crows practiced that. In '83, then in '84, they pushed the U.S. government, U.S. Army, and everybody involved pushed the Crows to the present reservation. They had established the Crow Agency here, and hence the name Crow Agency, Montana. They never gave it a second name, just the Crow Agency. And so for the Mountain Crows and the Kicton Abilities, this was the third Crow Agency for them. Whereas the River Crow, they had agencies at Fort Holly, Fort Cass, and also Fort Belknap, and some of them preceding the first Crow Agency at Fort Parker, which is east of Livingston on the Mission Creek. And so when they were brought here, the Crows were under extreme subjugation rules. They had banned, the U.S. government had banned Native religion, they had banned Native languages, they had banned Native foods, but then again, the reservation Western Indians west of the Mississippi had not much of a choice, because the United States government had embarked on a scorched earth policy to starve the Indians into submission, and by that process they killed the wild game almost completely off the face of the earth. And at that time, a U.S. government report said that over 4 million head of buffalo were killed.
Wow.
Trying to starve the Indians into submission to these very stringent and taking away of sovereign authority type treaties. They wanted the Indians to submit, even though the Indians did not know what was written in those treaties. There were still provisions that if the Indians found out, the U.S. government wanted them to be powerless to refute them. At that period of time, from the 1850s on into the 1870s, the Native American tribes were very powerful, so much so that many U.S. generals in testimony and in reports called the Native American militaries the greatest light cavalry in the world. That's because only a force of maybe 3 to 10 could overpower much superior numbers, because of their ability to fight and their fighting tactics, which then now is employed by the U.S. Military, and they study Indian warfare as part of their guerrilla tactics. That as an aside, when the Crows were brought here, since the ban on Native culture was enforced, and the Crows were forced to become Christians at gunpoint, they went underground with these ceremonies, the Native sacred ceremonies, and one of my uncles would say, in teaching me some of the social dance songs of this dance, which came with the ceremony in 1883, he'd say they sang the song at Blue Mountain. Little Mountain is a high mountain between it would be northeast and northwest of the Bighorn and Pryor Mountains. And they would hide from the U.S. authorities and have that ceremony over there. And they continued to have that, and the knowledge then that was expressed to me during that time, and then following in 1976, the U.S. was celebrating its bicentennial. 1975, they were making awards for the bicentennial celebrations in all of the states, including Montana. And the late Henry Hanko Coyote and Ellsworth Lake approached the state of Montana and asked for some of that bicentennial money. It was awarded to them, and there was on the proposal that they would have the Crows would have the ceremony at Crow Fair, and feed all the people that come, all of the visitors and everybody else that would come. And just like one of the Crow Fair rodeo announcers used to say, my cousin, Jigs Yellowtail was his name, he'd say, "We have Indian cowboys from all over the world and various other places," he'd say. But we had, and continually, Crow Fair is a host to many, many different nations, native nations as well as nations of the world. We have visitors from Japan, Europe, everywhere. And this year, Sean is going to be the head of that. And so they continued to have the ceremony, and much of the ceremony was taught to me because in 1976, my uncle, and he had related this to me earlier, but he reiterated that the very first recipient of the tail feather chief was Old Coyote. And in the vernacular of the ceremony, he was adopted into the what we now call Daytime Hot Dance Society by a Hiranza by the name of No Milk. There was a No Milk that was later on living in the Pryor area, but it was a different name from two different tribes, and the circumstances of the awarding of those names I don't know, but they're two different people with the same name. Just like if you're called Joseph and somebody else is called Joseph. Maybe both of you aren't Jews, but you're still Josephs. Get it?
Yes.
And so, anyway, so now, and so it was passed on to him, and because of his position as tail feather chief, he learned the ceremony thoroughly. He passed that knowledge on to Hanko Coyote, who then was also taught that ceremony thoroughly. And in 1976, he adopted me as tail feather chief, and he taught that ceremony thoroughly to me before that. And in subsequent years, in 1983 until the time of his sickness in the 1990s, he taught that. I had him teach that ceremony at Little Bighorn College back in the days when we were still on quarters, 3 times a year, when we went to semesters 2 times a year, and on and on. And so I became fairly knowledgeable in the ceremony, and that was my role this year. And in addition to that, the Black Lodge saw fit in the late 1980s, when they were reviving the ceremony at Black Lodge, that they awarded my father's old position of daytime announcer, and I carried that on, and I took that role seriously, and I taught the ceremony to the Black Lodges, and they began to perform it for several years until 2008, and then it went into hiatus. until Sean, right after his election of Crow Fair powwow manager 2022, he called me and I came here to his office, and he said, I want to rely on the religious beliefs of the Crow people so that we can have a very good Crow Fair powwow. The dancing that begins and culminates the Crow Fair, I want everything to be well. We want to have a successful Crow Fair. So what are the ways that I can I have spiritual blessings so that we can accomplish all of this, and this being the property of not one man, not one district, but the entire Crow Nation. He's acting on behalf of the entire Crow tribe, under the auspices of the Crow Tribal Administration, of course, because this is the Crow tribe's event. And so he spoke of it in that manner, and I began to tell him that these are the Crow native rituals. These are the things that you can do. He's done quite a few of them already. And I told him about this daytime dance. You're going to be in charge of this dance that is now called powwow, which the Omaha still call war dance, which we used to call war dance or Omaha dance, and then they called it Indian dance or simply dance, and then later on we called it celebration. And interestingly enough, 1978 was the very first time I heard the term powwow used at this dance. It was in Fort Kip, Montana, and the announcer was Pete Coffey. He said some woman's name is donating $25 to next year's powwow, is what he said. And everybody kind of looked, powwow? We never heard that term associated with this dance before, because we had heard celebration a lot. The Hyanazas used celebration a lot, so did the Sioux celebration, and it went on like that. And then the term powwow, I don't know how exactly how it got into his vernacular, but then people began to like the idea, because powwow had been a word of denigration for Native American people in this country, as the same way as the word squaw, a word of denigration. They used other terms to denigrate us, like redskin, and there was a lot of other derogatory names that are off color that we'll not mention for your very clean paper. It's not even yellow, so we'll go with that. And so he called it powwow, and now everybody, the Contest Indians, have never heard of war dance. Some of them have never heard it called celebration. They never heard it called Omaha dance. They've heard it called powwow. That's it. And so there's a generational gap in terms of the knowledge from then until now. But this ritual that Sean sponsored on behalf of the Crow tribe under the auspices of the Crow Tribal Administration is for the great success of the Crow Fair powwow, because he's in charge of it. He's in charge of the well-being of the Crow people that are involved in that. He's involved in the reputation of the Crow tribe, and he's involved in the preservation of the honor that goes to the Crow Fair itself and the Crow people. And that's the reason why he wants to have a real good powwow this year.
I think that's really honorable.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was a great thing that he thought of all of these native Crow things. I'm handling something that is part of the Crow culture, albeit it's not native to the Crow people, but it is something that was adopted by the Crow people. And here's something that the Crow people did. Many tribes brought their traditional ways, ceremonies, rituals, and whatever that did not comport with the Crow spiritual worldview, they would not participate. They didn't reject it, but they would not participate. because the Crow belief is that whatever is your spiritual gift from God, you're the one that knows it, and I have no right to interpret it or judge it. That's the Crow belief. So they won't reject it, but if they don't agree with it, they'll just won't participate. And so they saw this dance, and it comported with the Crow spiritual worldview. So they adopted it, and it's part of our culture since 1883.
So what does this dance actually look like in practice?
She's got the looks likes right on her computer.
Okay.
You haven't been here very long, have you?
Since January.
Oh. Where are you from?
Missouri. I
Missouri.
moved here from Kansas City.
Oh, there's not many. There's powwows over there, but very few. And you probably didn't hear about them.
No.
Yeah.
So, what I would like from you is an email so that I can send you the photographs that I was able to take during the ceremony itself.
For sure.
And I will include a small description with each
Please.
so that you know exactly what it is.
See, she's got so many pictures of Indian dancing, she has to thumb it really quick.
This is just that day, that day itself. So I've got, I think, over 300 photographs.
Better to have more pictures than too
If you
few.
take a picture of the notes coming out of our mouths when we're singing.
So, I would like to start with the actual piece that I think signifies what he talks about, especially at the point where we have the 4 tail feathers, and he didn't really reiterate what our main we were given this ceremony. We took it. But the thing about it is, before the ceremony even came to us, we had already had 4 of the tail feathers that were of the ceremony. And I'd like him to elaborate on that, because we're the only tribe, I believe, that has 8 tail feathers and not just 4 for the ceremony. Because of the fact, yeah, this is when we were coming in.
Wow.
And they're just, just random photographs of everybody just coming inside.
Oh, those are good pictures.
The actual, just what I tried to capture from my perspective was the actual atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see people busy, and as well as the frame, in the frames themselves, this is a prayer way. So you can tell the intensity of everybody that was there participating in it and wanting to carry out all of the things that have gone through. So when she's done looking through my photographs, I'll give it to you and you can look through them. But I would like to send them to you with a small description.
Please.
So that way we can go in order of how these things were done.
Yes.
Because I think the order is important. So if you can scroll through a timeline while you're reading that, I think it helps.
Yeah.
To not only show the significance of the ceremony, how significant it is to us, the importance of it, and to understand that this is what our modern day powwow came from. Today we have, people that don't even know that, like you said. But when she's done scrolling, I'll make sure that you see the actual tail feathers that are sacred to us. And again, I think it's very important that everybody knows that even before we got the ceremony, that we already had 4 of the tail feathers that were with it.
Oh yeah, that's an important point.
Yeah, do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, see, they say the Lakota, that's how it's pronounced, Lakotas, had, of course, had received the tail feathers. The sacred, well, it's all sacred, but the iconic sacred parts are the tail feathers, and they say that since the crows were under almost constant invasion by different tribes. I'll relate it like this: from the northwest, the Blackfeet; from the north, the Assiniboines; from the east, the Lakota; and from the south, the Shoshone; and from the southwest, the Nez Perce at various times. And so, just to name some of the tribes that were contesting us for our land, and it was huge territory that they had. And so, during that time, of course, in battle, when you go to the other side to keep them off balance, you attack them. And so, in one that is called Red Bear's Revenge War Party, they captured a tail feather. They didn't know what it was for. And they say that one of the man who carried it, didn't know it was tied on to the back, and the string was tied together in the front. He didn't know it was. That's how they wore it, because they didn't know what it was about. And so he put it around his neck, hung it here, hung it on the back, hung it, and had the tail bustle portion in the back. And at one point, put it on the front. He didn't know how to use it.
Yeah.
And then in another battle called Bell Rock's War Party, they captured another one. And then later on, what the Crows will call the time when they killed only two. There was more, but that's how they signified that battle. Old Tobacco was told that there were two Sioux in a grove of trees, a bush, thick grove, and he went in there with just his horsewhip, flushed the two out, and killed them both, and captured the two tail feathers. Those 4 tail feathers were war trophies. They were war capture, and they didn't know what they were for until the Hinazes brought the 4 sacred tail feathers. Then they discovered what it was for. And because the 4 war captures of the tail feathers from the Lakota, that's why the Lakota today cannot have this sacred tail feather dance, or the daytime dance, or what they call Helushka. They can't, because we have the 4 tail feathers. When the ceremony was brought here, the Crows saw what they were, and they said, "Oh, we have 4 of them." We didn't know what they were for, so they added those 4. Now they represent the tail feathers of the right, they call it. And then the tail feathers of the left is what they use for the ceremony. Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out, Amber. I'm glad I caught it.
Wow. I love all the colors. It's beautiful.
I love the Indians.
So, in these photographs, what you're also going to see is the importance of this actual ceremony. Not only is it important to us Crows, but when we sent word out, letting people know that we're going to have this, and this was by verbal, following a lot of our cultural ways, we like to use the verbal to send, this is what we're going to do. A lot of these people nowadays will want, because of their entitlement, they want a poster or an actual invitation. But our traditional ways tell us that verbally this is something that is important, and so we sent word out. And knowing how important this ceremony is, and Omaha himself came and participated with us.
And additionally, he's a member of the Helushka Society, which is the original society of this dance.
And what's that society?
That's this dance.
Yeah, the same dance.
Yeah.
It's just changing names.
There's no more further to be able to say about it. It's the ceremony.
Yeah.
It's that society that conducts that ceremony.
Okay.
But we call it, what they call it is Helushka, and we call it the
daytime hot dance. And I'll tell you the reason why it's got different names. Each culture has a way by which they are able to vernacularize what they see, what they experience, and they call it originally the, as I told you, victory in war, warrior's dance. And so when it came to the Hinaza, they saw the iconic sanctity expressed through the tail feather, so they call it tail feather ceremony over there. When they brought it here, in their instructions to the crow were told, do not eat like a poor person, eat hot food. Then the crows called it hot dance. So that's how that happened.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so each one has an interpretation, and they vernacularize it from that interpretation. Whatever that interpretation is, it could be a mistake, but still they name it after that. I'm not saying this is a mistake, but it was vernacularized on the instruction of eating hot food.
Okay.
So these girls really worked hard at serving hot food to all the participants. They did a great job.
That's awesome.
And of course, it's the tail feather owners that disperse the food.
Mm-hmm.
But the preparation of the food, we always rely on the woman. And this predates the coming of the tail feather ceremony, or this hot dance, as we call it. They say that whenever a public event is to be done, in order for that public event be successful, a woman has to have an integral part in it. And so they pay homage to that because that was instruction from the sun. And once they say the drum is hit, the first to arrive would be women. They bring their spirit, they bring their support, and the event will be successful. And so we're mindful of that. And so we always make sure that the inclusion of women is notable. And unlike a lot of cultures where they will diminish the role of the woman, the native crow culture, from the way in the beginning, women and men had equal stature in respect, although their contributions to the ceremony or the secular life were different. They were both treated to be as very important.
So Sean, what was it like for you going through some of this?
It was as a sponsor, it was good to sit there. We practiced for 4 weeks. Every Mondays we practice, and it's never been done for 14 years. So with that thought, they practiced, and it was there, and the people, they all kind of came together, and the Crow Tribal Executive Branch, Chairman Whiteley and Wacy Reelbird, they donated the beef. So we cooked the beef, and there was some other ladies that helped out with the food. So it was a spiritual, how can you say it? See something like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was good feeling to see all that come together, where we come from, because we're kind of in a day and age where we're kind of losing ways, so we don't want our language and different things. So it was good to kind of bring all this up. All year we've been doing that. We did a war bonnet dance. We did a Shoshone dance. Those are all our ways. So it was good. It's up to leading to Crow Fair. We have a couple more.
May I add something to what he said? I always talk about the 4 P's of culture. One is protection. One is participation and perpetuation and preservation. In order for a culture to live, the middle 2 that I said are the most important. No culture has survived through preservation and just protection, but cultures survive by participation and perpetuation. You participate yourself and then you in turn teach it. That's how cultures survive. If we preserved it and put it in the archives, those wonderful electronic images, they'll just sit there till some scholar comes along, maybe 50, 60 years, 100 years from now, and says, well, I heard this about the ceremony, and does a scholarly paper, and it doesn't even make it to your newspaper. You see. So who knows about it? But if we participate and we perpetuate it, then the culture is widely known by the people, and then the value is truly expressed.
That's beautiful.
And that was to so we have seven princesses, districts princesses that have been involved in all these cultural activities that we're doing. So we wanted them to see why, why they are a crow. So it's been pretty good experience for them as well.
What are the 7 district princesses? What's the history of that?
Well, let's see, what year was it? 1989. Henry Reelbird was the one that instilled the idea, then was pushed by the late Gladys Jefferson. And they both said we ought to have a Miss Crow Nation or something like that, they said. And so the vehicle by which this would come about would be Crow Fair, they said. They both said it. And I thought about it as well. I heard about how the Crow woman was honored and venerated by having the outstanding Crow women be one of the dual caravan leaders, and how this outstanding Crow woman was also used in the Sundance and relied upon her integrity and her virtuosity for the success of their endeavors. And I had heard that in the very first Crow Fair parade in 1908, they had selected an outstanding Crow woman to lead with this parade that would commemorate the caravan and their movement between camp place to camp place. So I said, I think it's not a bad idea. Let's do it. And so we did, and then it grew from there. There was one Miss Crow Nation, then they wanted all the districts to be involved later on. Then they started appointing district princesses to be involved. And then now there's a Miss Crow Fair, Junior Miss Crow Fair. And is there a Tiny Tot Crow Fair? No, there's those 2. And so it has grown. And so the honor of this event is being shared with as many people as possible. And it goes back to the historical use of the honor of the woman amongst the Crow. Now, women were not treated as second-class citizens, or they couldn't hold property, or they couldn't speak in church or anything like that. They were honored, and they had to role in these rituals.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Very important, yeah, because it shows how non-bigoted the Crow culture has been, and its native form continues to be today.
Yeah, I think you miss a lot of perspective and half of humanity when you don't have women in public office and in roles like the ones that you've mentioned.
Tell that to modern politics in the U.S. today.
Exactly.
Yeah. Modern economics, modern science, and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the woman has her role. and they're very important roles. They contribute.
Mhm.
So does a man. So equal contribution makes for a stronger nation.
How prevalent is the Crow religion today?
Not as prevalent as before. Uh, the ban on native culture has had its profound effect. Whereas in, what is it, 2016, I believe it was, they said there's 28%?
Yeah.
28% of the Crow people speak the Crow language. That's a minority, a big minority. And so the assimilation pressures from government, from Christianism, and the removal of the economic stability of the Crow people contributed, because the message that the Crow people were hearing was that English is a language of success, both economically and scholastically. And in a desperate mode, many of the Crow women bought that idea, and they began to diminish the importance of the Crow language, so much so that there's many Crow women who now today will not speak Crow language to each other. They won't speak Crow language to their children. Therefore, there's a large decline in the rate of Crow language speakership. Us men, we still talk Crow to each other all the time. We talk Crow to the grandchildren. As a matter of fact, my great-granddaughter, next to the youngest one, I'll talk Crow to her all the time when she's at the house. So when I'll say, Diabogavik, I will see you, she'll say, bye. She's got a non-Crow speaking mother.
Yeah.
She's not a Crow. And so, as you know, it's have you ever read Joshua Fishman, the sociolinguist from UCLA?
No.
Okay. He argues very strongly and very cogently, I would say, that since it's called the mother tongue, there's a reason for that. Our trust, our innate trust in our mother or mother figure allows us to have unabashed or unfettered learning. Then it's the role of the mother to pass on this language. The father has a role, but a secondary role, and reinforces the stability within which that language is learned. And so, but it's called the mother tongue. And you've probably heard that language before.
Yeah.
I mean, that terminology before, mother tongue.
Something that I'm really interested in, that I've researched, and I wrote an article about it for the paper, is these vision quests.
Yeah.
From
That's a Sioux term, vision quest.
Okay.
Crows simply call it fasting.
Okay.
Because the Crow belief is that we're not arrogant. We're not worthy of telling God what to do. We're not worthy of His knowledge, so we won't say, this is what God tells me, or this is what God wants you to do. We won't say that. So we fast. Maybe we'll have a spiritual experience. Hopefully we will. But it's not going out and seeking a vision, because we don't have the spiritual power to even know where to look.
Interesting. So do people still do that today?
Oh, yeah.
Go out in the mountains and fast?
Sometimes mountains, sometimes other places, a place of their own choosing.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not the cultural prescription is, it's your choice.
Mm.
The interpretation, spiritual interpretation that I told you about a while ago goes so far as that. And some people will fast even in their own homes. And unlike Some fasts, some will say they'll drink water all day, but they won't eat. Some fasts are like that in the European sense.
Yeah.
But in the Crow fasting, they go without food and water for a period of time, which usually spans over at least 2 nights, and sometimes more.
So who are the people that are doing that today?
I can't tell you because, again, it's individual, and they don't do it for public recognition. They do it for their own spiritual, let's say, satisfaction.
Makes sense.
Yeah. It's not like, oh, these are the Catholics and these are the Mormons.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, they don't get along. Here's the Pentecostals, they don't get along. It's not like that at all.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, in the spiritual sense of white America, those religions, even though they'll have rhetorical unification statement, their practice is exclusive of each other.
Mm.
You see that?
Yeah.
That's because in the Christian belief, they have the core belief statement of the Christian belief, John 14:6. You're familiar with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. No one comes to the Father except through me. Keying on the word except. Look up the definition of bigotry. Is bigotry when you exclude people?
Yeah.
So, if you're not Christian, do you exclude people that are not Christian from talking to God?
I was raised Southern Baptist. That's something I always struggled with was, oh, so we're right and no one else is?
That's bigotry.
That's really about, when I was 15, I stopped associating with that church and kind of branched out and discovered my spirituality for myself. But that was always a big issue I had.
Come to our ministry. No.
I'd love to sometime. I'm very interested.
It's open.
In it.
Yeah.
It's open. You don't even have to announce. You don't even have to tithe.
Yeah.
So just come to. Just ask somebody, when are you going to have the next religious event, whatever it may be, and they'll let you know. And you don't even have to have an invitation. Just show up and you're included. They won't say, are you baptized? You can't have communion unless you're baptized. The Southern Baptists, do they still, down in the South, do they still do the communion?
Yes.
Yeah. And without having that first communion, you can't have it. Whereas they don't care. But we don't care. Because who am I to say that you're not chosen? As far as we know, we're all chosen because God created us all. Chose to create us. All of us. Yeah. And we know that God's knowledge is far beyond human knowledge. As my great-grandmother prayed, she would say, Creator, you who created everything, you who created things that are good, things that are bad, you who created things that are good and things that are evil, you who created things that we can see, things that we will never see, you who created things that we know and things that we will never know. That is your power. It's omnipotence. Omnipotent. She expressed that omnipotence in God. And so what does a Christian do? They don't acknowledge that omnipotence by saying this is what God knows. What God wants you to know is in this book. And we say, what, really? Is that all there is? So why does God disagree with himself? As you know, the Bible has a lot of contradiction in it.
Yeah.
And in the interpretations from that Bible, the followers of this Christianity become hypocritical in their treatment of that interpretation. Have you seen that?
My thing is I've gotten older and my relationship with my spirituality has changed is there are many religions around the world, and I think that's important because my experience with God and your experience with God is not the same. It's impossible for us all to have the same idea of what God is. So I view Southern Baptism, the Crow religion, Buddhism, whatever it might be, if that's your vehicle to which you go to understand what is the higher power, more power to you. I don't judge because...
By golly, you're more Crow than Christian.
Well, I don't consider myself a Christian. I've taken things from several different religions.
You're even more Crow if you're not Christian. No, I'm just teasing.
But I do think the Bible has lots of good wisdom and
Sure
things
does.
that you can apply.
Sure does. But it also has teachings in there that justifies bigotry, which is a problem.
I mean, it's written by humans, of course.
Bigoted humans. Had it been written by a Crow, they would have not allowed that kind of statement. Do we have a right to own people? No. Women created by God? Yes. Can a woman have a spiritual experience equal to mine or exceeding mine? Yes. On and on.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Do you two have anything you want to add? You've both been a little quiet.
Well, we're going into the philosophic area now.
I think it's important to even show during this ceremony, going back to it, that there was a time when that ceremony is held that the women don't take the floor because it's so sacred. And we still practice that belief because this weekend I will be attending a powwow in Bozeman to participate in, knowing how sacred that dance floor is. And for me, it has been taught to me that I need to carry myself out there just as I would anywhere else, and that I would come home bringing something with me that is good, whether it be a new friend, even a new family member, something that was given to me, like in a giveaway, for example, even monetarily. And so this belief way, this religion helps mold, I think, people into people that should be good, that are good examples. And those are the ways of chiefs.
What she's expressing is very important because when we go to a dance, it's a war dance or now called powwow, they say that from the center of that event comes happiness and good health. We take that home with us and use it with our home folks. And so the good things that come from it, are more valuable than the material things that we let go being a participant. And as you know, as we told you, like for instance, if I ask you for some sort of a spiritual gifting through prayer, through wish making, or telling of dreams, I'll pay you. I'll try to make you feel good. We do that. And that's what she says. Maybe she'll bring home the blanket. Who knows? But in the Omaha way, this was a warrior's dance. Therefore, the ceremony is predominantly man. And the way I understand it, a lot of the warfare that was done by men. In the modern mechanized warfare, women can equally participate nowadays because they can push a button and they can kill somebody 60 miles away. Whereas in the warfare that was done in that time period, there was a lot of hand-to-hand. Even the rifles of the U.S. Army, all the way to the battle on the hill over here in 1876, U.S. Army had inferior rifles to the Indians. Indians had repeating rifles. The U.S. Army did not.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's all written into archaeology report done for the National Park Service at the battlefield. I can't remember that lead archaeologist, but it was a team of archaeologists who discovered that Indians had superior weapons. How did they get them? From traders. You know, T-A-R-D-E-R is not traitors, but traders.
Yeah.
And they received those guns, and their superior armament helped them to overcome the U.S. Army at that battle. And so a lot of the battling was hand-to-hand. So in hand-to-hand confrontation, an outstanding warrior is usually able to overcome a female more times than not. Therefore, the militaristic aspect of this war dance, victory in war, centered on the warriors or the men. In the 1950s, women came onto the dance floor. And now, you see the modern so-called powwow have a lot of women. As a matter of fact, in most cases, women will outnumber the men on the dance floor. And so their participation has now been integrated. And they have contest categories that women participate in. And in order to increase or keep the dance alive, as a matter of fact, my late uncle Barney Old Coyote in 1960 saw that the danceway was dying. You know, a lot of the native culture was dying, and he knew that without participation, it's going to completely die. So he put up all of the money for a dance contest. And $100. Think of what $100 in 1960 would be worth today. A lot of money.
Yeah.
He put that up himself, and he had a dance contest. And next year, in 1961, he did that again, and then he added a singing contest. $100. So he put up $200 that time. And that was the late Barney Old Coyote Jr. who did that. And then interest grew. He had a friend from Rosebud, South Dakota. His name was Norman Knox. And he saw that, and he said, this is a good thing, we're going to do the same thing. So he went back home, and his family put up money. And then for a period of about 2, 3, 4, 5 years or so, it was kind of like a contest. You know, Norman Knox would come by and camp with Barney. He said, well, how much is going to be paid out in contests this year? Because we're going to have more at Rosebud, because they had their powwow 1 week later. They do that. And so then the interest grew, and the contest grew, because it saw it was drawing more participants. And so it revived. It revived this native dancing. And the vestiges of this sanctity is prevalent in some of the dancers, whereas we'd hope that more of them would learn.
What's, I guess I'll ask you yours, and also the Crow belief on the afterlife.
Oh, we go to they say, the way they say it, aguget azuk. Even the ones on the other side have a good life. Spiritual life, yes. The ones on the other side have a good life. They always point to the west when they do that. They point it the wrong way to north. I didn't mean to put Santa in. So they have a good life. And so we all go. We all go. In the Crow belief, like the Jewish belief, there's no hell. You ask a Jew, where are you going to go after when you die? It's not defined, you know. Going to hell, so what's a hell? It's the Christians who believe in a hell. Oh, you know that, don't you? Yeah.
Another thing I took great issue with, I didn't understand.
They took a Greek myth, the Hades story, and incorporate it into the Christian belief. It's a pagan belief. And here they quote Jesus to say paganism was not a good thing, but yet they violate his teachings and bring in a pagan belief and create the idea of hell. Interesting.
Yeah, and most of the references to hell in the Bible are not like the fire
depiction, Dante's depiction.
Yeah, Dante had so much of an influence on what people modern day think of as hell.
And the novel that talked about the 7 deadly sins are not found in the Bible, but it's in the novels. But Christians believe that to be, if you eat too much, you're going to hell. That kind of thing. Crazy stuff.
I think you can control people much more easily when they're afraid.
And you can manipulate their ignorance to be afraid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think the Catholic Church has had some influence on that as far as modern day.
Christians have a lot of influence on it. Albeit the Catholic Church was the original church. And then from that, of course, the Muslims broke away, the Orthodox broke away, and the Protestants broke away. But each of them preached the same thing. You're going to be punished in life, in this afterlife, if you do this on earth. And is it wrong? I don't know, but I see how they use it, and that's wrong. They use it to manipulate people into a subservient type of life, which is not good. Yeah.
Subservient, what do you mean?
Subservient, you in service to the doctrine.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting stuff. If you have a piece of paper, or if you'd like me to put my email in your phone for those pictures, it'd be awesome.
So this dance that was just sponsored by,
here you go.
Awesome.
By Sean.
I'll grab one of these pens.
Yeah.
By Sean, has that spiritual expression, and we don't know how to interpret the blessings yet, but many people who are participants will describe an extreme happiness, inexplicable. They'll so happy that they feel like crying. And I've heard several people express that feeling now.
Yeah.
Out of this. What is it? We don't know. But it's extreme happiness. So happy you feel like crying, you kind of don't know why.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a surreal feeling.
It's a release. There's a lot of power when something the Bible says 2 or 3 people get together, God is there.
It can be only one. It doesn't have to be 2 or 3.
Yeah.
It can be only one.
But that's something that I am thankful for, that I was raised religiously, because it does give you a community of people.
Yeah, the motivations for community, one stems from religion. One stems. That's only one part of it. But the largest part of community is economy. That's the strongest one. Because to survive and to survive well is a great motivation for all human beings.
Yeah.
Much more than spirituality is. That's why most very rich people are happiest people on earth and non-religious. You get it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But they'll spend that money that says in God we trust, and they don't believe it. They work for that in God we trust, but they don't believe it. But yet they're happy. A billionaire is on TV. He says, I'm not afraid to go to hell. I'm an atheist. He comes on TV, he talks about it. He's a billionaire. Does God reward only those Christians that believe in God with riches, as the Bible says? No. Rewards those people that are non-believers.
Well, I think...
You see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think people who do acquire a lot of things throughout their life, religious or not, understand some form of power that they have, and that
Could
allows
be.
them
Yeah, you
to
could
acquire.
be right. I've never heard them say that themselves, but you're saying it for them. Maybe you're right.
Whether that's understanding the power of their mind.
I worked with a. You're saying you understand the power of their minds.
No, I'm saying I think people who acquire a lot of things understand the power of their mind. If you put your mindset on, I'm going to make $1 billion, there's power in that.
Now they understand economy.
Yeah.
Anyways, there was a colleague of mine who was professoring at Little Bighorn College, was an avowed atheist. So was his wife, and they're both still alive. Would say, I am more morally guided in my atheism than a lot of these Christians are, because a lot of their moral teachings are in fact immoral in their treatment of human beings. He'd say that. So I listen to that and I say, morality, is it something that is existential or is it experiential in
I
its
don't know.
acquisition? And so from his standpoint, he said it's experiential. This is what humankind had to learn in order to survive well and in harmony with each other, because strength is numbers from all things that are evil. The evil is one that's going to take advantage of you and make you do things that you wouldn't otherwise do. And so or victimize you to justify or cover up what they're doing, just as examples. So that evilness that he has defined makes sense. It's a common human experience over millennia.
Well, there are people that I know who are atheists and proclaim, I believe in no higher power, there is no God. But they're some of the best people I know. They're philanthropists.
Proves his point.
And to me, that is God. You're helping the people around you. You're making the world a better place.
To them, it's not.
Yeah.
To them, it's just harmonious living on this natural world that we have, which when we leave, we just go back to the earth. That's their belief. So, who's right, who's wrong? I can't tell you.
There's no way to know.
One of these days, God will let us know, maybe, and our heads will be this big. There'll be so much knowledge.
I don't know. I really don't.
So, unlike the preaching from the Christian lector, who will say, this is what God wants you to know. And what I'm telling you is the only thing that God wants you to know. Unlike that, the knowledge of God is far greater than that. Far greater than mine.
Yeah, it's impossible to comprehend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the Christian lecturer will tell you the limits of God's thinking. And to practice immoral things that, in my view, I don't think God wants it that way. I don't think.
Yeah.
I'm not saying God doesn't want it that way. I don't think he does.
You already said it. I don't want to repeat it.
Oh.
So
And waste his time.
Gone off on a philosophic track, but this gives you the background, worldview, to understand the spirituality of such an event. See, the Crow belief is that God is all powerful and has placed power in 7 entities, and each of them being undefined, and in terms of its impact, in terms of its physical manifestation, all different. For instance, if one has a wolf medicine, that wolf medicine may be different for you as it is for her, the use of it. It's all wolf medicine, but you may use it in a different way. She might use it in a different way. Your treatment of that, your ritual may be different than hers, but it's wolf medicine. So how did it get there? Our belief is that God placed it there with these sometimes very specific uses, sometimes broader, but there's no one medicine that encompasses all. The seven entities being the heavens, all things of the heavens, air, the elements of the air, the plants, the earth, fire, water, and all animals, including you and I. Because there's the power of God in you. Defined, I don't know, maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but I sure don't know unless you reveal it to me. And I have no right to interpret it for you or judge it for you.
Exactly. You looked like you had something you wanted to say earlier. Do you have anything to add?
No, I was just telling her I don't want to repeat what
Oh,
she
yeah.
already said, the same thing.
If you have anything to add, please. I'm taking as many notes as I can.
I don't really have anything.
So when is the fair going to be?
Third weekend in August.
Okay.
So in calendar dates,
That would be, I believe, the 20.
the Crow Fair had been on different dates.
18th, 19th, 20th, and 21st.
Yeah.
August.
Did you include the Monday?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh,
22nd,
22nd. Sorry.
Yeah.
So it's just that weekend, 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd.
And it actually concludes with that feast and the voting for the new leadership.
New leadership.
That'll be on it for the next year's Crow Fair.
Oh, okay.
23rd. The Crow Fair had been done at different times. The first Crow Fairs were when the Indian agent Reynolds was going to celebrate and show to the world the full assimilation of the Crow people, that they had become farmers. And so he did a fair, hence the term Crow Fair.
Yeah.
Like at the county fairs that you've had experience with, you see vegetables everywhere. You see chickens and rabbits and stuff like that. Pigs, cows, horses, everywhere. This is what I was able to produce. It's a fair. That's how he designed it. But the Crows were very astute people. And they said, they learned that the world press was invited. They said, wait a minute, this dance that we received is a very good thing. And if the world press is watching, the Indian agent will not be able to stop us. And they did it. So the native things that persists from the very first Crow Fair in 1904 is dance. And the Indian agent was a fan of flat track oval racing. He had a racetrack built, grandstands and everything like that. They had races. The very first Crow Indian Derby was run in 1904. The Crow name for Crow Fair is Chichachawaswa, racing in a circle or oval. That's the Crow name. They named it after the horse racing. And so the dance and the horse racing are the two that persists through time. And so it got a reinterpretation. My dad, her grandfather, brought the modern form of rodeo. Before that time, rodeo was riding buffalo and trick riding and breaking horses in public or getting on a bronc and riding it to a standstill. It was like that until the modern form of rodeo, when he brought it in 1933 with Turk Guido, Bill Shipp, Dave Shipp, and Ted Knight. They were all outstanding saddlebrook riders, including my dad. Brought the modern form of rodeo. That was added on. And then in 1908, as I said, as a tourist attraction, the Indian agent had the Crow Indians Parade. And the Crows, knowing that the world press was watching, they said, wait a minute, let's do something that the Crows had done in the caravan days. And but they asked the bull who doesn't fall down, and I've called it unfallen bull, and wishes to arise. Chidavir. He counted coup on Red Cloud's son, Jack Red Cloud, during that battle of the Rosebud. That's what the crows name it, when unfallen bull struck coup. And they brought him and had him lead the parade. The both of them lead the parade, Crow Fair.
Oh, cool.
And in that, they reminded themselves and all the people of the pride of the Crow and their military history. They paraded together, 1908. Following that, the Crow women's role in the leading of the caravan was also acknowledged and incorporated. Following that, and the Crow interpretations of our culture began to make its way into Crow Fair. Until now, we don't show pigs, we don't show guinea pigs and roosters and stuff like that. Not anymore. But the four major events of Crow Fair are dancing, the parade, the flat track racing with now the addition of Indian relay, and rodeo. Those are the four major events of Crow Fair. As you see, some of it is native, some of it is not. Like flat track racing is not native to the Crow. They had racing, but a different form. So rodeo, modern rodeo, is not native to the Crow.
You two, having participated in this recently, how do you feel this year's fair is going to go?
Well, that's what we're wishing for a good fair. So the Almighty people will appease the Almighty, so we have a good fair for all the Crow people and far, and come from far, and powwow and parade and rodeo, and get to it in a good way. And when we go home, we'll feel good after Tuesday of the Crow Fair. I mean, there's another ceremony during Crow Fair that they do. It's called the parade. That's blesses the camp, and then we go home for next year.
What about you?
Having participated, I can't wait to be able to be an active participant in all of these things, because that's who I am. And I have to, say that I have a lot of sense of pride carrying those ways with me. And seeing what transpired that day, there's still a lot of things that I can't describe. But the feeling of being there physically, I can't even describe that either. There's no other place I would have rather been that day.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and Crow Fair is very important to us, and this daytime dance is important as all other religious experiences that we have. And here's something that is very important to think about. You see, cultural stability leads to economic success. Cultural stability relies on economic success. It's almost a symbiotic thing. So because of our poverty, because of the things that poverty brings to people, there's a lot of factors that have destabilized our native culture in our native society amongst the Crow people. They say a large factor that is important is cultural identity. Cultural identity strengthens the character of an individual.
John.
So this the strengthening of the character usually takes people back from dysfunctionalism to a more normal life. So these cultural expressions help to achieve that very important goal of having a secure, a safe, and a vibrant Native culture.
That's great.
I'd like to add to that by saying as well that I always feel my most beautiful when I dress up in my traditional clothing. I could go buy a $5,000 Amani suit and it's not going to compare to how I feel when I'm dressed up wearing the clothing that my ancestors wore and passed down. And so when I get to do that, I feel my very best. And Crow Fair has cultivated that. It's been a part of my upbringing, and that's what makes me feel the best.
That's cool. Thank you guys for sharing all this with me. It's been great.
And it's important, and we thank you for allowing your paper to be the vehicle by which this knowledge can be disseminated and hopefully shared.
Of course. Well, I'm grateful that you all thought of me and allowed me to have this experience and
It's
allowed me
actually
to tell the
Sean,
story.
because I didn't know who you were.
Yeah.
I think I might have seen you somewhere before, but I didn't know who you were.
Yeah, my first introduction to Sean was he donated the proceeds of a basketball tournament to the local schools. I thought that was a really cool thing to do.
Oh, the schools that participated.
Yeah.
Not local schools, but the schools that participated in
Yeah,
that.
in the
Yeah.
tournament in Billings, I believe it
Yeah,
was.
the shootout.
Yes,
The All-American Indian Shootout.
yes, that's what it is.
It's named after the basketball team that his father was a part of, called the All-Americans, who won a national AAU title. Back in the days when AAU was huge. As a matter of fact, AAU in a lot of circles was more important than college basketball. And so, back in those days, they won it. And so, in honor of their contribution to our tribal pride and Native American pride, for that matter, he decided to have that All-American Indian Shootout using the name that team called themselves, All-American. And there were Native Americans. Well, how more American can you get than being a Native American?
Yeah.
Although we preceded America, Americo Vespucci, poor guy.
My great-grandfather was the coach on there. His name is Otto Bergeron. So there's a lot of cultural ties as well as relation to it. And we wanted to, I know he wanted to instill that pride, and for him to be able to have a shootout and donate back to the schools, we think is commendable. And that's our powwow manager that's going to lead us to this Crow Fair. This is his vision, not ours, basically.
He grew up with the cultural value that we do things for the people, not for ourselves. But cultural practice is that when you do something spiritually good for me to show my appreciation to God, I pay you. Thank you for the blessings that you ask for me. Make you feel good before God, so that it shows a sincerity. That's what happens.
I think that's about all the questions that I have. Is there anything that either of you would like to add or that I might have missed? Same with you, Sean.
I don't know.
I think that's it. I just kind of wanted to put it out there and kind of say you do it. So, we can do this, some justice.
I'm looking forward to coming to the ceremony. That'll be
You
cool.
bet.
Yeah.
Keep you
Oh,
posted.
just like he said, there's Native Days coming up.
That's a huge
And
one.
at that Native Days, he's going to be sponsoring a powwow. And
And the veterans,
the
too.
the Crow tribe had established the Crow Native Days under the auspices of the executive branch. And the chairman usually designates who runs the each event. And in this time around, he allowed the Crow Fair executive director to select the individuals that will run the various events. And he's in charge of the powwow, and I've been designated to do the Shoshone dance, which we'll do in coordination with Sean, because he's the, in addition to his position here and the position that you heard about, Crow Fair powwow manager, he's also the Veterans Affairs Director. And the Shoshone dance uses veterans integrally in that ceremony. So I'll be coordinating with him to have that Shoshone dance, which is the second name for the big Native Crow victory dance.
When is Native Days?
Same at the weekend of the anniversary of the Battle of the Little Bighorn.
Okay.
So it's somewhere around June 25th and 26th. I believe this year it's the exact weekend.
Is it?
I think so. But it would be, let me see, I can look on my calendar. So we would start probably on Thursday. Powwow would be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. As well as the rodeo, that would be
Probably, we'll say probably.
Yeah, probably. What is this at?
Might be 25th and 26th rodeo.
Yeah, Friday is the 24th. The anniversary of the battle, I mean, the actual dates are the 25th and 26th because it was a 2-day battle. But we'd probably start on the 23rd. We also have events that encourage participation, as well as our athletes. You know, they have the athletes come in, they compete on what they call the women as well. They have events where they call it the Ultimate Warrior. And that's a big deal. We have people that train year round for it. It's really something to watch.
Well,
And I believe they also have arrow throwing, and they may also have hand game as well. So it's an event that, you know, again, everybody's invited and to participate as well as watch, you know. And again, you know, everything he's done up until this point is so that everybody gets there in a good way, and that whoever comes, you know, I guess in short, leaves with a good feeling, you know, leaves with something good, because these are important, you know, to us.
The Crow Executive Branch tries to have the 4 major events of Crow Fair be prevalent in the Native Days. So therefore, he'll be in charge of the powwow. And Mark Realbird, the Crow Fair rodeo manager, will be in charge of the rodeo this year. And I believe that he's going to have it a tour rodeo, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
Indian National Finals Rodeo, tour rodeo. And then the Crow Fair race manager, Posey Whiteman, is going to be in charge of the horse racing. And what's that gal's name?
Brenna.
Melendrez.
Melendez? Melendrez?
Yeah.
Brendan Melendrez is going to be in charge of the parade. And then all of the other events, like she mentioned, the Ultimate Warrior is going to be managed by the Secretary's office.
That's what they say.
Yeah, Secretary's office, that's going to be managed by them. The arrow throwing, they named somebody, I can't remember. He's going to be in charge of that. And all of the different events will have people that manage them. And but it's all under the auspices of the, and usually the chairman's office.
Yeah.
okay,
So we have a pretty good veterans program too. You'll like that.
for sure.
That'll be on Friday, wouldn't it?
Yeah, right after the parade.
Yeah.
So the parade kicks it off, that just kind of goes into that one program after another.
Cool. Well, if you all have nothing else, those are all my questions. Again, thank you so much. I feel like I've got enough info here to really explain to people what's going on and the practice itself. So I'm looking forward to writing it.
Mm-hmm.